Can you walk our listeners through the process that California is going to go through to redraw their maps for the 2026 midterms?
So on Monday, the legislature will introduce in both houses a constitutional amendment that includes new maps that will be done in a transparent way to request of the voters on a special election on November 4th to move forward with mid-decade redistricting that in essence will neutralize or neuter whatever happens in Texas. We won't move forward. It's a trigger unless Texas or other Republican states move forward. It will be temporary. It will be done on an emergency basis.
It's never temporary.
It will also be done in a way that reinforces our commitment to nationwide independent redistricting.
It is unbelievably dishonest that Gavin would try to sell this as anything but a raw power grab. His intent has never been clearer: to disenfranchise millions of Californians, specifically the nearly 40% of voters in the state who consistently support Republican candidates. Right now, Republicans make up about 39 to 40% of California's electorate, yet they hold only 12 of 52 House seats, about 23% of the delegation. That's already a massive underrepresentation, but under Newsom's scheme, that number could shrink even further, dropping Republicans below 20% of the seats despite representing close to 2/5 of California voters. In other words, Democrats want to cement a system where a party that commands 2 out of every 5 ballots cast barely has 1 out of every 5 voices in Congress. That isn't democracy, by the way. It's disenfranchisement dressed up as reform. And the fact that Newsom and Democrat leaders are framing this as neutralizing Texas tells you everything you need to know about the process. They're not pretending this is about fairness for Californians or addressing real issues. And Gavin's talk about this being temporary or an emergency measure, please spare us. Nothing in politics is temporary once it gives the ruling party a permanent advantage. If it sticks, Republicans in California, already nearly voiceless in Sacramento, will lose what little representation we have left in Washington. That said, the larger implication here is that this isn't just about California's maps. It's about redefining democracy into a one-way street where power justifies itself. The media is cheerleading this. Universities will start rationalizing it, and activists will frame it as protecting voting rights. But the numbers don't lie. Almost 40% of Californians will be reduced to less than 20% of representation. That's not democracy. It's authoritarianism with a blue coat of paint.
He's going to roll it over. Look, if we roll over, it's over. Over now. There's no independent redistricting nationwide if he rigs the 2026 election before one vote is cast. There's no 250th anniversary of We the People in the enduring the best of Roman Republic and Greek democracy. We're not going to be out there celebrating that. There's no rule of law. It's the rule of Dawn. The extortion racket he's running, capitalism. I remember, I'm old enough to remember my Republican friends supporting free enterprise. I think it was Churchill said, a healthy horse pulling a sturdy wagon. I'm a small business person. I'm proud to have created 1,000 jobs myself.
That's not a small business, dude.
Corruption at a level we've never seen in our life. This is sick. This is real, guys. He's an invasive species. This is not about parties. This is about power. I'll say it again. It's about the rule of Dawn. They sent me a 2028 Trump hat. That wasn't just to own the lib. It wasn't just to have fun. They mean it. He means it.
Everything Gavin is accusing Trump of, he's doing himself. The irony here is almost too thick to cut through. The redistricting process Republicans undertook in Texas is fully legal, fully constitutional, and has precedent going back decades. Meanwhile, greasy Gavin is trying to override the will of California voters who already chose an independent redistricting commission precisely to prevent partisan abuse so that he can gerrymander his way into protecting Democrats' dwindling majority, essentially stealing the 2026 midterms next year. That isn't defending democracy, folks. That's straight up defacing it. What we're really seeing here is a party so terrified of losing its last grip on national power, so desperate that it's willing to abandon even its own past rhetoric about transparency and fairness, except when it comes to transparency about their own corruption, which they now seem very proud to take ownership of. And let's be clear about Newsom's record for a second. This man presides over a state with the highest poverty rate in the nation when adjusted for cost of living, the largest homeless population in America, more than 180,000 people on the streets, and a net outflow of residents for 3 straight years. Crime rates in major cities like Los Angeles, where I live, and in Oakland are soaring. Businesses are fleeing to Texas, Florida, Tennessee, and California now ranks near the bottom in public education outcomes, despite pouring more money per student into schools than ever before. These aren't statistics of a leader who's fixing anything. They're the statistics of a straight-up decline. Yet, instead of tackling these issues, Newsom is pouring his energy into this national vanity project, staging photo ops, launching counter-programming against Republican governors, and positioning himself for a presidential run. This is clearly about Gavin, about fulfilling his ego, about preparing himself for a national run, making his name a national brand, getting himself some sort of household recognition. He doesn't care about Californians. In fact, the only time he cares about Californians is when he can use state money to reroute it through nonprofits so he can enrich himself, his wife, his friends, all of his cronies. Gavin loves to talk about Donald Trump and crony capitalism. Meanwhile, he's provably, through IRS forms, as we've seen in other videos here, folks, he's provably enriching himself at the backs of California taxpayers. History isn't on Gavin's side, folks. Leaders who try to rewrite rules to secure their dominance rarely emerge stronger. They often bury themselves. Hugo Chavez rewrote Venezuela's constitution before and after elections to guarantee his hold on power, insisting it was always about the people. That slippery slope ended with a destroyed economy and a hollowed-out democracy. Sound familiar? Newsom isn't Chavez yet, but the playbook is very similar. Redefine democracy so it always equals your party's rule. Smear opponents as existential threats, then change the system itself to secure your seat at the table. It's authoritarianism wrapped in a designer suit with a whole ton of hair gel and Botox. The broader cultural takeaway is this, folks. Democrats once claimed the moral high ground on institutional integrity. They were the party of guardrails and checks and balances and the rule of law, but now, as their coalition completely splits, they're trading those principles for raw power plays, just straight up pulling out of the Leninist playbook. Here's a catch, folks. By doing so, Democrats are accelerating the very decline they claim to fear. Voters can tolerate incompetence longer than they can tolerate cynicism. And in the long run, this move won't just undermine Gavin's chances at the presidency, it will erode the last shreds of legitimacy his party claims to hold. When you run on saving democracy but operate like you're dismantling it, people notice. Partisan voters see right through it. Take mental note. And they remember, when they go into those voting booths, all the moderate voters, folks. He may be appealing to all the fringe nutbags on the Democrat left who are looking for somebody to push back against Trump and fight. I want to see the moment that those Democrat primaries get rolling and he starts getting hit for all of his corruption, for his decades of failure here in California, from when he was mayor of San Francisco to his tenure as lieutenant governor, to eventually becoming the governor of the state and ultimately leading the state to an absolute state of destruction. Once you're a normal, everyday American who's middle of the road and just wants the government out of his business so that he can do whatever he wants with his life and raise his kids, once he notices that Gavin Newsom's weakness is the ultimate veil through which the Democrat left will attempt to usher in communism, game over, folks. Once they realize that Gavin Newsom will effectively make the entire country, in Los Angeles, a town overrun with homeless, overrun with crime, smash and grabs every night, lawlessness, riots, businesses fleeing by the thousands, your regular, everyday American terms with that and hears about it and sees it right in their face. Newsom will be the next Kamala Harris. And I predict, and I don't often do predictions, but I predict that he may likely be one of the first people to drop out in deep shame during the Democrat primary. So the real question for all of us isn't whether Gavin or any politician can bend the rules to cling to power. That much is obvious. Democrats can do it whenever they feel like doing it. The deeper question is how long we, as the people of this country and the state are willing to accept the political culture that calls manipulation democracy, failure, leadership, and raw self-interest as justice? How many times can the meaning of words be inverted before the entire system collapses under its own hypocrisy? And when it does, who will be left to rebuild trust in the very institutions being hollowed out by Democrats right now? These aren't just questions about California or even about Gavin, folks. They're about the health of our constitutional republic, where narratives too often matter more than actual reality. So the challenge before us is simple but profound. Will we demand honesty and accountability, or will we keep nodding along when the language of freedom is twisted as a tool for control? You tell me what you think in the comments down below. Hope you have a terrific day. Peace.